Amen. Okay. It's the end of Kaleo. You made it. It's the last night. It's the last sumo, last everything. Give yourself a round of applause. We're here. We made it. Hey, as I was looking back, thinking through Kaleo's past that I've been a part of, I've realized that Kaleos, as a whole, have certain characteristics that are always true. One of those is that Kaleo has the ability to be the fastest and the slowest 9 weeks of your life at the exact same time. Some of you may be able to relate with this right now. You feel exhausted, but you're also extremely sad that it's over. It feels like we just got here, but it's also been maybe one of the longest summers of your life. Kaleo also has always been, and always will be, a summer of memories. I have memories on top of memories that flood to my mind whenever I think of Kaleo. I thought of my first Kaleo the other day, and I thought of this building right here. So I was in a D group with my best friend, and we decided that we wanted to start hiding out from our D group leader. We had had enough of him. So we found a spot at this building where he couldn't find us. And I know you're like, this is vague, it's a whole building. Well, this was the only way I could get a picture of the spot we would use to hide from him. We would actually go on the top of this building. It was 18 stories. We shouldn't have done that. We were on the roof of that building. That's a memory I have. Another memory I have is my D group leader summer. We lived at Seascape, and I remember early mornings, while it was still dark, Sergeant Dunnigan and I would go out every so often, and we would just pray, kind of on a pier, on a dock. And I got to see, sitting next to Sawyer, it was like 5:15 in the morning, we were praying, and a lightning storm came in towards the coast, and Sawyer and I watched for 10 to 15 minutes as this lightning storm came in, and it was unbelievable. We just stood there in awe of God's creation. It's an incredible memory. Well, this summer has been no different. It's been a summer of memories, and I have a lot of memories that I'll take with me for the rest of my life. And so I think we should recap a little bit. I'll always remember picking up the mattresses for the condos in Blue Water Bay. So some of the D group leader guys are going to be with me on this one. We had 45 mattresses that we picked up to put in all the rooms at Blue Water. And so Colin and I went and picked these up. We rented a huge U-Haul. It was like an 18-wheeler. It was the size of the stage. So we're driving, it was far too big, we didn't need it, but it was huge. And so we're driving it around, we're driving to Blue Water, all these mattresses, and we're like, we need some help delivering these. And so we go and we get some D group leader guys. We get about 10 guys, and so we're looking at the U-Haul, single cab, 3 people can fit in the front, and we're like, how's this gonna work? So we decide they're gonna go in the back. And so all 10 D group leader guys jump in the back, Colin and I pull down the door, and we hop back in the cab. Okay, we drive out Mike Wright's smiling, he was part of the group. So we drive out of the golf village, we turn right to head towards Bayside to drop off a mattress there, and Colin and I start hearing noises we shouldn't be hearing. Guys are wrestling among these 45 mattresses in the back of the movie U-Haul. They're slamming into walls, slamming into mattresses. You're hearing guys scream, some in victory, some in straight terror. It was an incredible memory. I had driven a mobile wrestling match. I'll always remember the cookout to kick off Kaleo. I always remember how we all put on the Kaleo tanks, right? That was kind of weird. I don't know how it happened. I don't know why it happened. But it did, you know? So it's a memory. I always remember the first evangelism. I remember the feeling of nervousness and anxiety in the room as many of us were about to go out and share for our first time. And then I remember being at share time and seeing the excitement on the faces of so many of you. You have just shared for the first time in your life. You just shared the gospel with somebody else. And even then, you were showing early signs of this vision, this passion. Maybe you could be somebody who could impact lives around you. I remember when John Cox answered every single question that was asked one Wednesday night training. I remember David Trice making enemies left and right here, where I'm standing, drawing for jet skis. I may or may not have coached him to do that. I'll always remember when we tried to have a slip and slide social during a hurricane at Crab Trap. You know, not everything can go perfect. Finally, I'll remember me putting NSU and Kansas on the map on the front of the Back to Campus Week manual. That was a mistake I made. You know, I took nearly 20 trips to Kansas or to NSU, and who knew I was driving to Oklahoma the whole time? I apparently did. Well, this summer, like every summer before, has been one of memories, and I'll cherish them. But another aspect of Kaleo that has been true every summer before this one, and I hate this one, but it doesn't change the fact that it's true, it's that not everyone who attends Kaleo goes back and applies what they've learned. Not everyone who goes to Kaleo for 9 weeks, learns how to walk with God, catches these tools and this vision to go back and impact those around them on their campus, goes back and actually applies what they've learned. And I absolutely hate this. And so I don't want that for any of you. I want every single one of you to take this summer and let it change your life. I don't want you to look back at Kaleo and look at it as the pinnacle of your walk with God. That would be a nightmare for me. What I want is I want Kaleo to be so much more. I want Kaleo to be the beginning of the rest of your life. I want Kaleo to be the beginning of the rest of you, giving your life to know God and to make God known. Giving your life a way to impact others. I want you to look back at Kaleo and say, that summer, that time right there, those 9 weeks, that was the time whenever I decided that I was going to be different. Whenever I decided that my life was worth something. When I saw that God had a plan to use me. So as we said in this room tonight, what I want to do is I want to give you 3 reasons. 3 reasons why you should apply what you've learned this summer. Why you should live to impact those around you. Why you should labor. So we're going to start here. God commands it. Bobby Jones is my favorite golfer of all time. Bobby Jones was the consummate professional. He was the consummate gentleman. He is the only player to win all 4 major golf tournaments in the same calendar year. So golf has 4 big-time major tournaments. He's the only one to win all 4 in the same year. Bobby founded Augusta National, which is the home of the Masters every year, which is the most prominent golf tournament in existence. And Bobby himself helped bring the tournament into existence. He helped create it. Bobby Jones went to Georgia Tech, and he was known as a man of incredible integrity, like I said. He actually never went professional, meaning that anytime he won a tournament, he would never take money for that win. But instead, he decided to stay an amateur. He chose to make his living as a lawyer in Atlanta, Georgia. Well, he retired from competition at age 28, but he still has gone down as arguably the best golfer of all time. Well, in the 1925 U.S. Open, Bobby found his ball at the top of some heavy thick grass. It was setting up in the rough, and he approached the ball to play his next shot. And as he stood over the ball, he placed his club in the grass, and something very bad happened. The ball tilted. The ball had moved. But Bobby looked down and he had a choice. No one would have ever seen this. No one would have ever seen how much this ball moved, not even the slightest inch. Well, Bobby played his next shot. He walked over to his playing partner, Walter Hagen. He said, "Walter, listen, I approached my ball, it moved. I just wanted you to know so, you'll write down the right score for me," because he would keep a score. And Walter started debating him. He said, "Listen, Bobby, no. Are you sure?" Bobby's like, "Yes, I'm sure." He's like, "Well, let me ask some spectators." So he actually goes and asks spectators. He said, Did you see the ball move?" They said, "No, we didn't see the ball move." He comes back to Bobby and he says, "Listen, you gained no advantage. No one saw it. It probably didn't move." Well, they couldn't come to an agreement. Bobby Jones played the rest of his round at that U.S. Open. He came to the end of his round, and at the end of the round, the player will sign his scorecard to say, "This is the score that I shot." Well, before he was going to sign that scorecard, the officials came up to Bobby Jones and they said, "Bobby, listen, we talked to spectators, we talked to Walter. No one saw that ball move. You can't. I mean, you gotta not count that. It didn't happen." And Bobby said, "No, it did." Bobby took his scorecard and he signed it for a 77 instead of the 76 that he would have shot without the self-imposed one-stroke penalty. With this one-stroke penalty, Bobby Jones ended up tying at the end of the tournament, meaning that he had to go to a playoff with Walter Hagen, the man that he had played with when the event happened. He lost the playoff. And in the press conference, reporter after reporter are asking him about the incident. Finally, one reporter stands up and he says, "Guys, I just want to tell y'all that Bobby Jones is an incredible man. Bobby Jones is doing something that no one would have, he's doing this amazing." And Bobby cuts him off. He says, "No, stop." And with a little bit of disgust, and Bobby, as he was listening to what was being said, he said, "You might as well praise me for not robbing banks." What Bobby did by calling that stroke penalty on himself in that golf tournament was he obeyed the rules of the commands of golf. And so as I've labored this past 5 years, and I've tried to make an impact, I've heard many people say, "Jeffrey, it's so incredible what you're doing in the fraternity. You lead Bible studies, you're sharing your faith. It's so incredible that you talk to people about Jesus." I look up to that so much. And the tone in that is the same that the reporter who stood up in that room had. It's a tone of, you're doing something above and beyond. It's as if they're not under the same commands to act the exact same way. But that's not the case. The case is we are all commanded to labor. God commands us to live intentionally among others. He does. He absolutely does. There's Bobby Jones. Matthew 4:19. Y'all know this one. He said to them, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. This was the purpose in calling them. He said, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. The results of following him was that these men would be made into fishers of men, making an impact on those around them. Mark 3:14 says, and he appointed 12, and he also named apostles so that they might be with him, so that he might send them out to preach. Listen to that verse. He appointed 12, so that why? So that they would be with him. Yes, that's so important. Walk with God and to know him intimately. That was one of the reasons Jesus called them. But he also called them so that he might send them out to preach. The Great Commission, go therefore and make disciples. Matthew 10:7. These 12 Jesus sent out. Acts 1:8. You will be my witnesses. It's everywhere in the Bible. We could go on and on. God commands us to labor. We are commanded to labor. I've seen a lot of students who want to say walking with God is like this. It's walking with God is this commandment, and I'm going to obey that one. I'm going to live in obedience on that one. But they'll say, reaching out to others, that's like an added bonus. Like that's like an add-on. That's like, it's not a commandment, but instead it's like this extra thing that I can do. It's this icing on the cake. It's this going above and beyond. Laboring is a super club in doing more than obeying. It's doing more than else. But that's not the case. No, laboring or sharing the gospel and living intentionally to impact the lost is a commandment. Why did it make Bobby Jones so mad that everyone was commending him for obeying the rules? Because he was only doing what he should have done. We're commanded to labor. So that's the first reason I want to give you. Labor because God commands you to. Another reason is because laboring is the greatest and the most rewarding adventure. Laboring is the greatest and most rewarding adventure of your life. So my freshman year, I attended the U of A, obviously, and I wanted to get a job. And I was looking online at some of the jobs that were offered on campus, and one of them was Razorback Patrol. So Razorback Patrol is provided by the UAPD. It's a rape prevention program. And what it is it's a bunch of guys driving around on a golf cart from 6 to 1 a.m. and giving girls escorts across campus. And so I walked in, I said, hey, can I have a job? They said yes. Along with my best friend who would also hide on that roof with me. We walked in there, we got jobs. And I was a proud Razorback Patrol cadet. The main reason may have been that I wanted to meet girls. And so my buddy and I, we loved the job at first, but eventually it got boring. Okay? It was monotonous. We would drive a golf cart across campus. We had kind of settled in. We were hanging out with who we were hanging out with. It had lost its luster. It was boring. Well, then Sergeant Haynes called my best friend and I into his office. And he said, hey, I got a special assignment for you. Special assignment, okay. What is it? And he said, well, we've been dealing with these bike thieves for about 2 months now. They're stealing bikes left and right. We don't have cameras at the bike racks. So what we're going to do is we're going to have you go undercover. I said, undercover, okay. I like that. Sounds like something I can do. So I had on my normal attire. I was wearing my Razorback Patrol polo. I was wearing my khaki pants. And then Sergeant Haynes looks at my best friend and I. He said, I need y'all to go back to your dorm. I need you to put on casual clothes. You got to fit in. You got to look normal. He said, I want you to go sit out there and I want you to catch these bike thieves. Call us if you see them. We ran back to the dorm. We changed. We were talking about all sorts of crazy scenarios, like do we need a gun? Are we going to get hurt? Like are we going to chase them and arrest them? Like crazy things that probably would have never happened, but we were so fired up. Our adrenaline was pumping. And so we go and we sat there and we looked at bikes for 2.5 hours. It was the most boring night of my life. But before that, we were living. We were excited because we were about to go on this adventure. We were about to experience something that no one else was experiencing. We weren't sitting in our rooms playing Xbox. We weren't even just driving the golf cart around campus. We were on an adventure. My craziest and wildest life adventures have happened these past 5 years as I've shared the gospel. I still remember my first time doing it. I remember walking through the Union at the U of A. I remember finding the guy that I was going to share with. I remember asking him, can I show you an illustration? It sums up the main thing of the Bible. I can still remember, my heart's kind of beating faster just thinking about it. I can remember the environment I felt. I can remember that my palms were sweaty. Even that my knees were weak and my arms were heavy. That's all it was. But my throat was right. Another time when I was sharing with a fraternity brother named Adam. I was at Slim's Chicken on college. Sean Vollendorf was sitting next to me, and I looked across the table at Adam. There's a lot of added pressure because Sean Vollendorf was sitting with me, but I looked across at Adam, I was just a year older than him. And I said, Adam, would you like to place your trust in Christ? And Adam looked up at me. We made eye contact. His face was completely straight, so serious. And he said, so you're saying I haven't made that decision? I started backpedaling as fast as I could. I couldn't figure out what to say. And then he cracks a smile and he says, I'm just messing with you. I haven't made that decision. He was totally playing with me in that moment. It was horrifying. I can remember being in India one summer. I remember dodging traffic, running across streets. I know we got the summer team here. They've been there. I remember going to the home of maybe the wealthiest man in all of Delhi. Just to put this in perspective, he had a retractable roof on a 3-story house. I don't even know how to explain it further than that. He was very wealthy. And so I walk into his house. It was an adventure. And how did I get there? Because I was laboring and God was using me. God had placed me there. I remember 1 year ago this month, sitting across from a dentist in Little Rock. Okay, I was sharing my heart for what I was about to be doing, going on staff, and I was about to ask him to support me financially so that I could be on staff. And I remember I had settled that I was going to ask him for a large number because I felt like he could meet that need, and I was excited for him to invest. So I got to the point where I was about to ask him for this large amount of money, and my heart was beating. My adrenaline was pumping. I might have been unconscious for a second, but I looked at him and I asked, I said, will you join my team for this much? He called me back 2 weeks later and he said, yes, I will. Man, that was an incredible adventure to have that appointment with him in Little Rock. And all of these moments are moments that wouldn't have happened apart from the fact that God had chose to place me there and that I had chose to give my life to God and let him do that. That I had chose to labor. The past 5 years have been the wildest and the most fun adventure that I could have been on. It was far beyond anything that I could have expected, and I'm so excited for the next 5 years. I'm going to read 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 23 through 28. This is Paul speaking. He's kind of summarizing, some of the things he had been through at this point in his life. He says, by the servants of Christ, I am a better one. I'm talking like a madman, with far greater labors, far more imprisonments, with countless beatings, and often near death. 5 times I received at the hands of the Jews the 40 lashes less 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. Night and day I was adrift at sea. On frequent journeys, in danger from rivers, danger from robbers, danger from my own people, danger from Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the wilderness, danger at sea, danger from false brothers, in toil and hardship, in many a sleepless night, in hunger and thirst, and often without food, in cold and exposure. And apart from other things, there's a daily pressure on me of my anxiety for all the churches. Paul was living. Was it always great? Was it always relaxing? No, but Paul was living life. Okay? He wasn't living in a house with a nice white picket fence, but he was living life. His heart was always beating. His adrenaline was always pumping. And this is so much better than a boring life. Laboring is an adventure. But the thing is, this adventure isn't just an adventure, but it's also an adventure that ends in rewards. That's part of the point, right? There's some rewards involved. And so I just came up with a brief list here. I don't think this is comprehensive, but these are some of the things I thought of. John 15:8 says, by this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. It's John 15:8. One of the benefits of this journey, or one of the rewards, is you get to glorify God here on earth. That's such a huge reward, is that you get to be a part of God's glory on this earth. Y'all know the Great Commission. It says, go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And here's a part sometimes we don't even think about, but it says, and behold, I am with you always. Being on this adventure includes getting to experience God's presence as we do it. You're going to go on this journey with God. Or there's Matthew 6:21. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. As you place your heart on a target, on a group of people, and you give it away, you place your heart over there, your heart becomes transformed. That's another benefit, is a transformed heart. You move from the selfless person, or from the selfish person, to the selfless person. You become a man of grace, or a woman of love. One more that I had for you, 2 Corinthians 4:11. For we who live are always being given over to death for Jesus' sake, so that the life of Jesus also may be manifested in our mortal flesh. That's 2 Corinthians 4:11. So Paul's writing actually in the context of labor. Okay, he's talking to a group of people who are doing ministry in Corinth, and he's saying, hey, we're giving our life over so that Jesus can be alive through us. There's the life, there's the adventure, there's the Jesus living through us. Those are benefits. So laboring is the most rewarding adventure that is out there. The final reason why we should go back and labor is because we will change lives. You will change lives. Some of you all know this verse. Well, some of you may know this, but the TMS is what we've been memorizing this summer. It's called the Topical Memory System. So 2 Corinthians 5:17, Galatians 2:20. These are verses that are part of a system that you're memorizing of 60 verses. So you should be through 18 of them now. My push to you would be to have all 60 memorized by next summer. That's less than one a week. But 1 Corinthians 15:58 is one of those that is on that list. A little bit later down, some of your eager clears may know it. But it says, therefore, my beloved brothers, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord, here's the key, your labor is not in vain. You will change lives. There was a guy in the 1980s at the U of A who played football. His name was Trey Smith. Trey Smith caught a vision of labor, and he impacted a guy named Ted Schimmer. Some of you may know Ted. Well, Ted then impacted a guy named Sean Vollendorf. Sean Vollendorf then turned around and impacted a guy named Joe Huff. Joe Huff impacted a guy named Stephen Billings, who impacted a guy named Ray Burbank, who impacted a guy named Bobby Pitts. And Bobby Pitts decided in the fall of 2009 he was going to go share the gospel in the dorms. So he meets a freshman named Jeffrey Coffman. Okay? I came to the U of A with 3 goals. I wanted to chase girls, I wanted to get drunk a lot, and then I wanted to find a job when I graduated. That was the 3 things I wanted out of college. I thought if I did those 3 things, that's a successful college experience. Well, when I met Bobby, he shared the gospel with me, and at some point that fall, it made sense. It clicked. I understood the gospel for the first time, and I decided I wanted to give my life to Christ. I wanted to make Jesus the Lord of my life. Well, Bobby pushed me to go to SMC, and I went. He pushed me to go to Kaleo, and I went. And through spending time with Bobby and through those 2 things, I caught a vision, and I wanted to share the gospel. And I wanted to give my life away, and I wanted to labor. So I started doing that. Fast forward 5 years, and this is me 5 weeks ago. I got to do Josh Hutchison's wedding. Okay, some of you know Josh. Josh Hutchison is up there. What's happening is he's about to marry Hannah Smith, now Hannah Hutchinson, and her dad's giving her away, and they're hugging. You can see me up above them. Well, at this wedding, rehearsal. Yeah, there I was. I was there. At the rehearsal dinner, I was in the back corner of the room, and I was kind of relaxing, not really engaged in anything, and I was just eating some food, and listening to some people talk and toast. And then out of nowhere, I just kind of got this emotional feeling. It was just kind of, I got sentimental a little bit, but it was because I looked around the room, and I saw the fruit of ministry in Vital. I saw Will Sloan. I saw Jack Gresham. I saw Stephen Smith, Kyle Aiken, Luke Schaefer, Clayton Wall. I saw Graham Smith, Bo Renner, Joey Hubblestreet. I saw Alex Chafin. I saw Cole Elliott. The list could go on. Just a picture of some of these guys. That's Josh on. What a night. What you need to know about these guys, you may not know any of them, but they're all Phi-Delts. Okay? Some weren't believers when we came to college. Some were. But now, they're all walking with God. And they're living to make God known. And in this moment, having another one of them right now, in this moment, it hit me. This is what happens when someone gives their life away. That's what happens when someone offers their life up to God and says, God, I'm going to try to do it. God moves. Lives are changed. Okay, I'm going to end on this. So I shared just with y'all the story of how it got to me. Trey impacted Ted, who impacted Sean, who impacted Joe, who impacted Stephen, who impacted Ray, who impacted Bobby, who impacted me. Well, my plan was to show you a picture of all these guys in unison. And so what I did was I emailed Steve Shadrack, because Shad was close to Trey Smith, where it all started. And I said this. I said, Shad, I'm prepping a talk I'm giving tomorrow night to finish off our Kaleo this summer. And in it, I want to spend some time talking about the impact of one life. I want to talk about how Trey Smith has changed my life, and we have never met. I said, I'm going to go down the line of the multiplication tree from Trey to myself. Would you happen to have a picture of Trey that you can email me? And could you describe him in a few sentences? Well, I put Shad's response to the email on the back of your handouts. If you'll flip it over, you can read it with me. This is the picture he sent me. He said, and this is the message he sent me. He said, Jeffrey, I met Trey when he was a senior at the U of A, a walk-on on the football team and helping lead SDA. We spent his senior year together, and we would meet almost every morning in the basement of the library to pray and to study Word together and to plan our day together. I took him on many evangelism, follow-up, and discipling appointments, as well as how to recruit and lead small groups. He picked up everything immediately, though, the very first time. He would watch and then go do. He was a man of application more than anyone I had ever worked with. He saw me pray, he would go pray like that. I taught him how to study the Bible, he would immediately start doing that. He started reaching out to other football players, but through him, Mark Lee, Ted Shimmer, Mark Henry, David Gunn, the list goes on, were impacted. Then he came on staff with me in 84, 85 at UBC. He expanded his influence and started working some fraternity men too. Clay Bell, James Redmond, R.J. Holzman, Sam Hannon, John Barclay, Trey Sharon, Todd Aaron, the list goes on. We're all impacted through his ministry. Then we left UBC in 1986, and he and I started STUMO. He really needs to have the title of co-founder or something like that. In 1988, I left Faye and moved to Conway. The main reason? There was no reason for Trey and myself to be in the same town. He could do exactly what I could do and more. And I could move on and start over and leave everything in Northwest Arkansas and Eastern Oklahoma to him. Trey loved and served guys. He was a man of vision and passion. He modeled everything he asked others to do. He encouraged and challenged leaders. He attracted and raised up strong leaders. He knew how to recruit and lead a team. He was a great thinker and strategist. He was a challenging speaker. And then he finishes his email with, is that enough? I'm like, yeah, that's enough. And he said, let me know if you want more. And then he adds this, of course my son Trey there at the project is named after Trey Smith. You might mention that. We can be a part of God's plan, and we should. Okay, He commands us to. It's a rewarding adventure, and will change lives. If one life can have this type of impact, what impact could 250 lives have? You know, I'm going to leave here, and I'm going to go be a Trey Smith. And I want y'all to come with me. I'm going to pray for us. God, thank you for this summer. Man, it's been a journey. And I just want to thank you for the way you moved in so many lives. Thank you for the vision and the heart you've given people, for other people. God, I thank you for exposing us to your vision, that we could be used to impact those around us. God, I pray that we would do that you would be with us in these next 3 weeks, that you would keep that fire and that passion hot, and that we would go to campus, and we would begin to share the gospel and bring yourself glory. Pray that you would use us like you've used Trey Smith. It's in your son's name I pray. Amen.